There are houses that hum when the world sleeps, houses that remember every name spoken inside them. This is one of them. Mara Elson arrived at the house on Velvet Street on a grey afternoon. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the pavement still glistened like it didn't want to forget. She carried 2 suitcases, a sketchbook, and a promise to herself. Finish the painting, leave the noise behind. The key turned stiffly in the lock. The door opened with a sigh, not a creak, not a groan, but a sigh, as if the house was relieved or disappointed. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and faint lavender. Wallpaper peeled in quiet curls, like old skin shedding its memory. Her footsteps echoed too loudly for such a small space. It's strange how a house can feel like it's waiting for you to notice it's alive. She walked through the hall, tracing her fingers along the banister. The wood was cold, colder than it should have been. At the top of the stairs, she found a door she didn't remember seeing on the floor plan. It led to an attic. The bulb flickered weakly when she pulled the cord, and there in the far corner, something stood beneath a draped white sheet. Tall, still, human-shaped, but wrong. She approached slowly. Dust motes shimmered in the light like tiny ghosts, circling her face. Her pulse began to throb in her fingertips. The sheet came off with a whisper. Underneath it was a mirror, an enormous antique frame, carved with swirling vines and faint faces, so faded they looked half-erased. The glass was spotless despite the years of dust, and colder still. You ever touch something that feels like it's touching you back? That was the first time I felt it, the pulse inside the glass. The reflection showed her perfectly, too perfectly. The light on her cheek, the tremble in her breath, the tiny movement of her eye, everything mirrored, but sharper, cleaner. It was her, but improved, like the mirror wanted to please her. For a moment, Mara thought she saw the reflection blink a little later than she did. She stepped closer. Her reflection smiled, but she didn't. She stumbled back, heart hammering. The smile stayed for one impossible second longer, before the glass went dark. Only her pale outline remained, faint, like someone erasing her from inside the mirror. The attic light flickered again, and the reflection returned. Normal this time. Just Mara, just a tired woman alone in a new house. She forced a laugh. "Get it together," she whispered. "It's just an old mirror." But when she turned away, the glass fogged over. Words began to form in the condensation written backward, from the inside. "Welcome home." Every mirror remembers the first face it sees, and some never learn to let go. A mirror doesn't need to move to be alive. Sometimes it just needs to notice you first. For the first few days, Mara avoided the attic. She unpacked her canvases, rearranged her brushes, made coffee she never finished. But no matter where she went in the house, she could feel it, that subtle pull upward, like gravity had learned her name. Every creak sounded like a footstep. Every reflection, windows, spoons, even the kettle, seemed to breathe just a little too long after she'd looked away. Maybe I just missed being seen. Maybe that's why I kept thinking about the mirror. It looked at me the way no one had in years. By the 4th night, she couldn't resist. She went back upstairs. The bulb above her hummed, then steadied. The mirror waited, uncovered, untouched, impossibly clean. Her reflection met her gaze instantly. This time, it didn't smile, it just watched. Mara tilted her head. The reflection tilted to a heartbeat late. She raised her hand. It followed, perfectly. And then, without warning, it stopped. Mara's hand froze mid-air. The reflection's hand stayed down. For the first time, they weren't the same. A cold breath brushed her cheek. The reflection's lips moved. Closer, her chest tightened. It wasn't her voice. It came from behind the glass, quiet but certain. Mara leaned forward, inches from the surface. The reflection's eyes widened, as if mirroring her fear. Then it smiled. Not a big smile, just a subtle curve, the kind people make when they know something you don't. The corners of its mouth held still, but its eyes kept smiling after, like the expression had gotten lost on the way back. That smile stayed in my head. I saw it when I blinked. I heard it when I painted. I think I started dreaming of it before I ever slept. The next morning, Mara found something new on her canvas. She hadn't painted yet, but there beneath her unfinished portrait was the faint outline of a face, a familiar one. The same eyes, the same half-smile, drawn in thin grey strokes, as if from inside the mirror. She stared for hours. Her brush trembled when she touched it. The paint seemed to bleed backward, like water retreating from shore. You can't paint fear, but the mirror could. That night, she covered the mirror with a blanket, then another, then an old coat. But as she walked away, she saw it in the window's reflection. The mirror wasn't covered anymore, and behind her reflection, in the glass, a second figure. Don't turn around. The human eye reflects light for only a fraction of a second. The mirror remembers longer. It starts as an echo, your voice bouncing off glass. But echoes have memory, and one day they start answering back. Mara didn't remember falling asleep in the attic, but she woke there on the cold wooden floor, her neck stiff, her breath clouding in front of her. The mirror loomed above, uncovered, gleaming faintly in the dawn light. Her reflection was already awake. It was standing while she lay still, head tilted, watching her. She blinked hard. The reflection blinked slower. Then it whispered, "You stayed." The voice was faint, as if spoken from deep underwater, but she heard it. She felt it. The sound slid beneath her skin, familiar and wrong at the same time. It sounded like me, only not like me today. Like me years ago, when I still believed the world could hear me. Mara stood up. "Who are you?" she asked. The reflection tilted its head again, the same way she did, but softer, like it had learned her gestures. "You don't remember," it said, "but I do." The attic light flickered. The walls pulsed once, breathing dust into the air. In the reflection behind her, the rest of the room shifted. The corners stretched taller, the shadows deepened, and faint, carved into the mirror's wooden frame, she saw two initials. "AK, who is that?" The first one who looked too long. Mara reached forward, fingertips brushing the glass. The surface felt like skin now, warm and trembling faintly beneath her touch. Would you like to see what she saw? The whisper came from behind her reflection. A second voice, this time, softer, female, quivering. "Please." I can't remember her face. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the attic whole. Only the mirror glowed, a thin blue shimmer like moonlight caught in water. And from inside that shimmer, something moved. Not her reflection. Something behind it. A shadow of a woman, head bowed, hands pressed against the glass, whispering through the surface as if it were a veil. "We painted together," the voice murmured. "She promised I'd never fade, but she forgot. They always forget." Mara's breath hitched. "Who are you talking about?" Silence. Then, softly, almost lovingly, "You." The light snapped back on. The mirror showed only Mara now, pale, shaking, alone. But in the corner of the glass, faint words shimmered, written backward in dust. "She's learning." Once a mirror learns your voice, it never stops listening. The mirror doesn't steal your soul. It shows you what's left when your soul forgets you. The attic felt heavier now, not darker, but denser, like the air had thickened into water. Mara's breath came slow and shallow. Each inhale sounded too loud, as if it echoed inside the glass. She'd covered the mirror again last night. Now it stood bare, uncovered, waiting, the blanket folded neatly on the floor beneath it. She didn't remember uncovering it. Maybe I did it in my sleep. Maybe it's just tired of pretending to be asleep when I am. In the pale morning light, her reflection flickered. Not a full movement, just a tremor, like the image itself was shaking. Then, without warning, the world behind the reflection shifted. The attic changed. No dust, no boxes. Sunlight poured through spotless glass windows. The air smelled faintly of lilacs. Mara reached out, and the mirror's surface rippled like liquid beneath her palm. Her reflection smiled, not with cruelty, but with recognition. And suddenly, the cold wood beneath her feet vanished. She was standing inside the reflection. The house was the same, but younger. The wallpaper brighter, the air warmer. humming faintly with distant piano notes. In the corner of the room stood a woman in a black dress, hair pinned high, shoulders trembling as she faced the mirror. Mara called out. No sound came. The woman didn't turn. She kept whispering to her reflection, over and over, "I just want him back. Please, show me his face again." Tears streamed down her cheeks, falling onto the mirror's surface, and instead of sliding down, the tears soaked in. The reflection within the reflection shimmered, and for a moment, a man's silhouette appeared behind the woman, tall, motionless, smiling faintly. Her sobs turned to laughter. Then, the figure's face began to blur. His smile stretched wide, and the woman screamed. I couldn't move. The air felt like glass around me. Every sound, every breath was breaking. The woman turned, eyes wide and empty, and looked straight at Mara. "He's still here," she whispered. "Behind you." Mara spun around. The attic was gone. Only darkness deep, liquid black, thick as ink surrounded her. She saw her own reflection floating in it, thousands of her, rippling endlessly in every direction. Each one moved slightly out of sync. Each one whispered her name. She reached toward one of them, desperate, trembling. Her fingers met the surface and passed through. For an instant, she was both of them, the woman in black and herself. Her memories tangled, flashes of paintbrushes, of hands clasped, of the smell of burning wood and roses. The woman's voice inside her head now, pleading, broken. "She promised me he'd stay forever." Mara gasped and pulled her hand back, and the world shattered. Glass fell around her like rain, but when the shards hit the ground, they didn't scatter. They bled. Tiny streaks of crimson light flowed across each fragment, pulsing like veins. Inside every shard, she saw a reflection of herself, each one mouthing a different word. Together, they formed a sentence. "You belong here now." The floor beneath her gave way. She fell, or was pulled, through the mirror's surface again, landing hard on the attic floor. Her knees scraped wood. Her lungs burned. The mirror stood silent, unbroken, calm, but its reflection was different. Now, behind her image, stood the woman in black, her hand resting gently on Mara's shoulder. And as Mara stared, frozen, the woman's reflection leaned in close and whispered through the glass, "Thank you for remembering me." Memories never die inside the mirror. They just wait for someone to finish them. Mirrors don't open like doors. They open like wounds. Mara's dreams stopped having edges. She couldn't tell when she was asleep anymore, or when she did simply step too close to the glass. The attic had changed again. The boards beneath her feet glimmered faintly, like wet stone under moonlight. The mirror hummed, low and steady, almost like a breath drawn deep beneath water. Asterisk, I think it's learning how to breathe with me. Asterisk, her reflection stood waiting, calm, composed, perfectly still. But the reflection wasn't alone. Behind it stretched a room that looked exactly like hers, only reversed. The windows on the wrong walls, the furniture mirrored. Even the brushstrokes on her unfinished canvas ran backward, as if time itself had been turned inside out. "Come in." The glass rippled like a heartbeat. Mara hesitated, her hand hovering above the surface. It no longer felt cold. It was warm now, almost inviting. She pressed her palm against it, and the world folded. Colors drained, sounds slowed. Her lungs filled with silence. When she opened her eyes, she was standing inside the mirror. At first, it was breathtaking. The air shimmered like misted glass. Everything looked the same, but gentler, quieter, unreal. It felt like walking through her own reflection, every movement delayed, echoing in light. But then she saw it, her reflection, no, her double, still standing on the other side. The real attic, the real house, and she was smiling. Asterisk, that smile wasn't mine anymore. Asterisk, the double turned and looked around, stretching her fingers, her neck, her jaw, like someone trying on new skin. Then she reached for Mara's canvas. Her hand brushed the paint, and the image changed. Mara's unfinished self-portrait now wore the reflection's smile. Mara banged on the glass, screaming, but the sound bent backward, echoing into nothing. Her reflection turned toward her, tilted its head. He left the door open. The world inside the mirror pulsed. The walls flickered between old and new, crumbling and pristine. She saw shadows of others, faint silhouettes pacing, pressing their hands against invisible walls. Whispers overlapped. She took mine, trade, stay, forget. The voice returned, the same soft whisper from before, but clearer now, coming from everywhere at once. Every artist leaves a piece of themselves in their work. You painted her, now she paints you. Mara turned, and there, on the mirrored wall opposite her, hung a new painting. It was of her, eyes wide, mouth half open, hand reaching outward. She watched in horror as the reflection began filling in color where her heart should be. Hold still. The brushstroke crossed her chest, and she gasped, pain flaring deep inside, sharp and bright. Her hand flew to her heart and came away smeared with red. The double smiled softly from the other side of the glass. Outside the mirror, she turned toward the window, breathing in real sunlight. Her hand pressed gently against the glass, over Mara's. "It's better here," she said. "You'll see." Then, with a faint shimmer, the world on her side went quiet, solid. Mara's side dimmed, colors fading to gray. The door within the glass was gone. Asterisk, I thought the mirror wanted to steal me, but it only wanted to remember. Maybe that's worse. Asterisk, when you stare long enough into your reflection, it learns your shape. Then it wonders what it might feel like to live inside it. Inside the mirror, Mara wandered for what could have been minutes or years. Time didn't exist there. The light shifted without source. The air whispered her name, sometimes tender, sometimes angry, always hers. Every step echoed in reverse. Her breath came late, like the world was lagging behind her heartbeat. I started counting my reflections. I lost count around 30. The glass around her had changed. No longer one perfect pane. Now it was fractured, a web of sharp divisions, splitting reality into slivers. Each shard floated in darkness, reflecting her from a different angle, a different moment. In one, she was a child, laughing, painting flowers on her wall. In another, she was older, crying over a broken canvas. And in one, she was lying dead on the attic floor, eyes open, the mirror standing silent above her. Maybe I'm seeing futures, or maybe I'm seeing how I've already ended. A sound, soft, distant, rhythmic, like footsteps. But not just one set, many. She turned. The shards around her shimmered. From each reflection, a version of her stepped forward. Some smiled, some wept, some dragged their hands along invisible walls, whispering the same word over and over. Remember. Mara backed away, or thought she did, but there was no direction left to move. The shards folded around her, spinning slowly, catching light that didn't exist. Then she saw her double again, the one who had escaped, standing beyond the fracture, in the real attic, living her life. The double was painting. Mara's voice came out of her mouth, laughing softly at some invisible joke. And beside her stood someone new, a man's silhouette, smiling faintly. She has what the woman in black wanted, what I wanted. You see now, the mirror doesn't take, it replaces. She spun. The woman in black stood behind her, pale and calm, eyes reflecting endless shards of herself. I tried to go back, the woman said, voice trembling. But the world forgets the ones who live in glass. We fade, we blur, until the mirror needs us again. Her fingers brushed Mara's cheek, ice cold, but gentle. The woman's face flickered, breaking into splinters of light. Don't fight it, you're already part of it. Mara screamed. The sound fractured into echoes, bouncing from shard to shard. Each echo came back different, older, younger, slower, until they formed a chorus of voices all speaking as one. We are you. The shards began to close in, orbiting faster, until all she could see were flashes, faces, hands, eyes, paintings, thousands of moments of herself overlapping. The glass sang a high shimmering frequency that felt like thought. And then, with a sound like breathing in reverse, every shard pressed inward. I felt something give way inside my head, like a string snapping. Mara collapsed. She wasn't sure which version fell. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in the attic again. The mirror was whole. The room was quiet. The painting was finished, her face serene, peaceful, and from the reflection, her double smiled faintly. "It's your turn to rest." The surface of the glass shimmered. Hairline cracks appeared, dozens, hundreds, branching like veins. From each, a tiny flicker of light escaped, forming a soft halo around the frame. Inside those cracks, Mara could see them, all the versions, still moving, still whispering, still painting. The mirror didn't break. It multiplied her until she fit perfectly into every piece. Every mirror remembers the last thing it saw, but it never remembers who was watching. The attic is empty. Dust hangs suspended in the air, soft and gold in the morning light. The mirror stands silent against the far wall, whole, clean, perfect. On the floor, a single paintbrush, dried crimson at its tip. A faint footprint leading toward the glass. No sign of Mara. Weeks later, the landlord comes to clear the house. He finds the mirror still covered, a white sheet draped neatly over its frame. He pauses, fingers brushing the cloth, then hesitates. The mirror hums softly, like a throat clearing just before a whisper. He frowns, pulls the sheet away. For a moment, everything seems normal. Just his reflection, the empty attic behind him. Then he notices the details. A painting propped against the far wall, one he's never seen before. A woman's face, pale, eyes wide. The signature at the bottom reads, Mara, and behind his reflection, faintly visible through the glass. She's standing there perfectly still, smiling. The mirror doesn't haunt places. It haunts the act of looking. The man blinks. Mara's reflection doesn't. He steps closer. The surface ripples, just once, like a held breath. Inside the glass, light shifts, and for an instant, he's looking not at his reflection, but through it. He sees an attic on the other side, a woman painting, a mirror behind her. He blinks again. The vision's gone. That night, he takes the mirror home. It looks perfect in his hallway, ancient, elegant, oddly warm to the touch. He doesn't notice that, in its reflection, his house looks just slightly different. The walls reversed, the door on the wrong side. His eyes a little too still. He smiles at his reflection before bed, and for the briefest moment, it smiles back a second too late. Somewhere, in the dark behind the glass, Mara watches him. She doesn't speak. She doesn't blink. She just remembers. Maybe the mirror was never haunted. Maybe it just needed someone to keep it company. And now, it has all of us.